Hello, this is our home presentation. My name is Tomas,
I'm
Masood.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Joseph.
I'm Brandon.
and we'll be discussing our internal and external senses of home and relating them to the passages we looked at.
I want to describe the meaning of home before we start talking about my experiences with home. The way I would describe home is being able to go to a place with the people you enjoy, and the main reason I'd say a place is home in my mind is being able to enjoy my life with my friends and family. This quote perfectly describes it. Give life to the world with the light of enjoy. With this quote from the Seafarer, it explains the feelings I have towards home because it talks about how life is meaningful with interactions. My experiences with home was a lot easier in the later in my life because in the beginning I just saw most things as negative because it's a lot easier to see things as negative. But then sooner or later I saw that things it's a lot easier to find to be happy rather than to see everything negatively because I had people to be with.
Okay, so Korea to America to Irvine. After being born in Korea, my parents wanted me to grow in a much more comfortable environment, which is why they brought me into the land of opportunities, America. We then decided to stay at Los Angeles after finding many new job opportunities there. However, my parents made the decision that this was not the right place for me to grow up in, as they were very concerned with many people that I see on the streets. That is why we ended up staying in Irvine, which is the safest place in California. Then, through 10, 12 years of my life, I moved constantly, but it was usually all still in the same city of Irvine. So I'd say that Irvine is my home as I lived in it for the longest portion of my life without ever moving out. Although I would say that my family is home to me as well, as they would constantly look out for me and support me. The definition of home reminds me from Escape from the Old Country, as the author was forced to adapt to the new environment that he was put into. Just like my parents and me, as it was quoted, tradition unobserved, unasked, hangs on tight. This showed that all my traditions in Korea were disposed as my family wanted to stay in Irvine. However, in the end, to me, home really represents the community that you live in, along with the people that you spent the most of your life with.
Okay, so having started early on in my life was the movement from my birthplace in Newport Beach to that of my current home life here in Woodbridge. It was a brief but circumstantial event, and it would change the differences of my choices and my life experiences. Home, in my honest opinion, is where you feel most at rest or at ease, as you find a place to go back at the end of the day and lie back. I don't find it as simplistic as to just being an area, but it is what you make of it and what is available to a person to call a place their home. This is discussed in the historical perspectives. For example, at the same time Britain became a world empire, Victorians could not escape the fact that on all fronts they were living in an age of transition. As quoted, the British Empire held control over many kingdoms and nations at its extent, but this is this relates to what considers the home and is not where you reside your time, but the qualities, people, and events experience.
So I've lived in three states over the course of my life, so it made it difficult to narrow an idea of home down to one place. My mother helped me in that because she told me once that we belong to people and not places. And that really cemented this idea that home is wherever I'm with the people I love, such as my friends and family. And because those feelings pervade no matter what physical distance you are. This relates to the history of Jamaica because the peoples who were either willfully or involuntarily brought to the island had to internalize their sense of home because they had come from so far away. This was especially true for the case of the Maroons, who quote unquote adapted to life in the wilderness by establishing remote defensible settlements, cultivating scattered plots of land, hunting, and developing herbal medicines and intermarrying with the Taino. So they were also forced to adapt and internalize what they believed was where they belong.
While I was born here in the United States, I spent most of my childhood in Taiwan. When I moved to Irvine in April 2009, I suddenly found myself in a new environment, very different than the one back in Asia, mainly due to the language barrier between English and Chinese. I was surrounded by people of all culture and languages, as expected of a large city that is of Irvine. I struggled at first to find friends and a community to belong to, mainly due to my lack of knowledge in English. The very first class I attended to in the United States was an ELD class at Cloverdale, a special program for English learners. While at first I was unable to make friends due to the nature of everyone in the class not understanding English and all are from different places and culture. And as it says in the history of English Church and England, but all are united in their study of God's truth by the fifth Latin. Similar to those that resided on the island of Britain, my classmate and I were connected by a language, English. As we learned more English throughout the year, we became stronger. Our relationship became stronger.
I was born in Red Bank, New Jersey, and lived there for the early stages of my life. I then moved to California in 2008 while I was still a first grader. Almost all of my family on my dad's side lived in New Jersey. This meant that we didn't have family to help us when we arrived in California. On top of this, I also transitioned between multiple elementary schools, constantly requiring me to make new friends. I came to realize that home was really what you made of it. You can accept your new environment and grow comfortable with it, allowing yourself to happily call it home. On the contrary, you can also refuse to accept the new environment and culture. This connects to the passage, Back to My Own Country, an essay, because the speaker tells the reader how she found that her roots for being African American held her back. Speaking about the racism she faced, I hated myself. I was ashamed of my family and embarrassed that they came from the Caribbean. This shows how she initially struggled with the environment and culture of London, thus she wasn't able to call it a home that she loved. Years later, she learned to love her home and also realized how much she gained from the struggles she faced earlier in life.